Morning. And I believe that every one of you, when you came to interview at Taft, began the process in the Harley Roberts room. We hear the name of our beloved school founder, Horace Dutton Taft, often in important school gatherings like morning meeting. But we rarely hear about another person who was instrumental in the founding and development of the school. That person's name is Harley Fish Roberts. The thing we call the loop where the cross-country team runs, often going down North Street, you see the little chapel. And if you can go in there and go over the bridge where the brook is, just on your right, you'll see where Harley Roberts is buried along with Mr. and Mrs. Taft. And so if you don't know the grave site, maybe you could make a pilgrimage there sometime and thank them for this school that 123 years later is flourishing. There's much to say about this intelligent, thoughtful, and remarkable man and how he helped create the Taft School. But this morning I want to mention Harley Roberts' life beyond Taft and his contribution to the greater Watertown area, Litchfield County, and the state of Connecticut. 2 or 3 times a week for the past several years, I've begun my mornings by hiking in Black Rock State Park with my beloved golden retriever, Safi. That is when I don't have this boot on or a cast or a pair of crutches in my hand. The truth is I hiked good ways in yesterday because I wanted to get a feel for it again. It's been a couple of months. For those of you who don't know the area, 4 miles north of here is Black Rock, and here it is right here. Hiking to Black Rock would more than likely not be possible today if it wasn't for the generosity and the vision of Harley Roberts. More than likely there would be no trespassing signs posted everywhere. It was in the late 1920s, before his death in 1930, Mr. Roberts sold his precious collection of Whistler paintings along with other valued possessions to raise money to buy the land that is around Black Rock. Black Rock's about a 40-foot cliff top a small Connecticut mountain. It's not really a mountain. It's a big Connecticut hill, but not Colorado, but it has a spectacular view of a bowl-shaped valley below. And I've seen deer, bobcats, and yes, snakes along the trail. 2 summers ago, I was hiking and a park ranger said that there was a 250-pound black bear just up ahead. Unfortunately, didn't get a chance to see him. But near the end of his life, Harley Roberts had been troubled in regard to the beautiful region between Watertown and Thomaston, which is about 7 miles north of here. He was worried that it was going to be developed in the worst way. He felt that the whole region ought to belong to the public. After a hiking trip through the woods one day, he told a close friend about his dream. And the friend said, "Great, Harley, you should do it." And Harley said to his friend, "I will. How much will you give?" And his friend laughed and said, "Okay, I will make the first contribution." And Roberts replied, "Good, I will match that." In a short time, he raised over $47,000, which today is the equivalent of about $600,000. And then he bought great tracts of land and received significant donations of woodland owned by factories in Waterbury, who were inspired by his dream to preserve the land in perpetuity for the public. The result of his efforts was that a very extensive and beautiful piece of land had been turned over to both the State Forest and State Parks Commissions. This was a tremendous public gift that people in his day said no other man could have succeeded in doing. And they said if he waited just another 2 or 3 years, it would not have happened because too many purchases were being made by private parties. What a wonderful testament to a very public-spirited citizen. Our very own Harley Fish Roberts. I'm going to move to the next slide. This was a hiking trip with crutches a couple weeks ago, over some logs to get there. As you can see from this picture, there's a brass plaque embedded in this huge rock honoring Mr. Roberts' vision and generous gift. The trail that once led to this monument many years ago has since been reclaimed by the forest. If you didn't know the local history, you'd never know that this marker was there, about 300 or 400 yards above Black Rock, just off of the access road. We may not be able to get to it this year, but in the near future, it would be a wonder if we could clear a new trail to Mr. Roberts' monument to honor him. But as we remember him, we should reflect upon his commitment his commitment to environmental preservation, and also do what we can to support his dream of setting aside more public lands for all citizens to enjoy. We especially need to do this in a time when too many things are becoming privatized and access to some of the most pristine wilderness is only accessible to the privileged few. In a democracy like ours, This should and must never be allowed to happen. Another inspiring story of land preservation was happening in the state of Maine at exactly the same time as Mr. Roberts was saving the land around Black Rock. The then governor of Maine, Governor Percival Baxter, purchased 6,000 acres around Mount Katahdin, which we can show here, from the Great Northern Paper Company during the stock market crash of 1929. Governor Baxter continued to secure lands over the remaining 30 years in his life. Before he died, he created the magnificent park that today bears his name. Baxter State Park has over 300 square miles of unparalleled beauty with over 40 peaks, many of them I have climbed. A hiker and camper or fisherman can readily see moose and deer, bears, black bobcats, bald eagles, and credible sources say that even mountain lions have returned to the area. Governor Baxter left $7 million in 1962 from his family fortune to be used to preserve the park for future generations. I mentioned Baxter State Park because the way it was created is a similar story to the founding of Black Rock. In each instance, one individual with a vision and a dream, a ton of energy and enthusiasm, and of course a little money, was able to create a park to benefit future generations and to preserve Mother Earth. Both of these nature preserves are places that I absolutely enjoy. Maine is a place I have called home for the past 30 years. My favorite mountain in the world is this mountain, Katahdin. I have climbed it multiple times in 3 different seasons with youth groups and close friends who share my love of the outdoors. It is a sacred mountain. The Penobscot First Nation people called it Katahdin because it means greatest mountain. It is sacred to the Passamaquoddy, the Micmac, the Maliseet, and all the First Nation people in the area. It's also deeply sacred to me. Harley Roberts and Governor Baxter were both visionaries and naturalists that have left a legacy that we must preserve and continue for future generations on the earth. I want to say something about the way I see nature. As a person who spent a good part of my life in various wilderness settings and as a person of faith, I see the transcendent presence of the divine in all things, in every mountain, stream, river, lake, air, the flora, the fauna, and certainly in people, because people are part of nature in every culture. Because we also belong to nature, yes, and things in nature do not exist. They do not exist for us to exploit at our will, for our own wants and pleasures. And we must distinguish between what we really need and what we simply want and desire. The two things are very different. Trees, mountains, animals, and people have intrinsic value. Intrinsic value is an ethical term in philosophy, and being a philosophy major and a philosophy teacher, right, Cardi? Right. Philosophy teacher, it means that things or objects, trees, mountains, animals, people, have value for their own sake, just being who and what they are. All things in nature have intrinsic value. They don't have degrees of value according to what they produce for our own profit. Too many of us today see the world and its natural resources as things that we can conquer, take, and use as we please for economic and financial gain, without considering their intrinsic value. And the result of such thinking and ways of perceiving the world is not only the environment is manipulated and exploited, but fragile ecosystems are severely degraded and even destroyed. The Iranian Islamic philosopher, physicist, and naturalist, professor at George Washington University, Syed Hossein Nasr, says, the environmental crisis, and I totally believe what he's saying here, cannot be solved by good engineering. It cannot be solved by economic planning and economic growth. It cannot be solved by cosmetic changes in our conception of development and change. It requires, and I want to emphasize this point, a very radical transformation in our consciousness. I mean, this means not discovering a new state of consciousness, but returning to the state of consciousness which traditional humanity always had. It simply means to rediscover the traditional way of looking at the world of nature as a sacred presence. So in your educational journey through Taft and in your life beyond Taft, I encourage all of you, remain open, but not only in intellect, but also remain open in heart and spirit in your quest to understand this mysterious and magnificent universe of which you and I are an integral and irreplaceable part. Practice seeing all things and all people as a sacred trust to be reverently cared for. Make this your highest priority in life, no matter who you are, where you are from, or what you choose to do with your life. Now, there are a few other pictures. I just wanted to, this is the knife edge at Katahdin. Gone over that many times, and ice and snow. And the next one, it's about a 2,000-foot drop down into the timberline where Chimney Pond is. I've almost lost it over the edge there a couple of times. Ms. Ganung doesn't know about that, but the next one is my buddy. This is the ascent. We're just ready to go up, and back when I had more hair and not the gray and everything. Then the next is we're up here on top. It's 30 below zero up there, and the winds are about 50 miles an hour. And our water bottles froze up when we even got to the timberline that day. And the next one is a group of us up there. That was a different day. It was a little warmer, probably 15 or 20 degrees to the top. But this is my beloved mountain. Many people love the mountain, of course. So, but with that, I want to just transition quickly and show you a short clip. We read the book, The Legacy, by David Suzuki, and I am so excited that he's coming here. You don't realize what an opportunity we have before us to have him here. Universities, colleges, places around the world, have him, he flies everywhere to speak. So he's in great demand. But I want to show you a little clip about his life, because he might not talk about this. Growing up as a third-generation Japanese Canadian, and the internment camps, and when the family was interred, and his experience feeling Japanese, even though he's Canadian, and experience with racism. And then it ends with the Hiroshima Peace Memorial. It's about a 12, 13-minute clip. So we can roll that.